This is Morning Motivation for Educators on the Be Podcast Network. Learn about all the shows at bepodcastnetwork.com. You'll hear from a variety of formal and informal educators who help put this podcast together. If you'd like to contribute your voice to this show, please go to morningmotivationedu.com to apply.
I'm Danielle Nuhfer, an educator for over 20 years who went up against 2 bouts of serious teacher burnout before finally realizing that I needed to share what worked and what didn't with educators everywhere. This is when Teaching Well was born. At Teaching Well, I partner with schools who recognize that when teacher well-being is prioritized, true teaching and learning can happen. And there's nothing more integral to building this kind of school culture than finding ways to care for yourself in the midst of all the school day hustle and bustle. Building in these moments is what this show is all about and what I hope to bring to you each time I get the opportunity to speak with you here. So with that, let's begin. Have you ever felt like a fraud? Let me explain. I felt like a fraud when I was a teacher because I never felt teachery enough. I was an English teacher who didn't read the classics. I was an English teacher who didn't know how to teach grammar in any sort of meaningful way. And then I found my footing. I found what worked for my skill set and who I was teaching. I found a way through experimenting and through time. I still never felt like I was a very good teacher's teacher, though. Not in the classical sense of the word. I was a good space holder, listener, empathizer, person seer, relationship builder, but a classical teacher, not so much. I was never the teacher put in charge of a course the kids would actually face a state test in. I was never the teacher who was put in charge of a group of advanced placement kids. I was a teacher who got the kids who didn't have anywhere else to go. But to be fair, I was also the teacher who got to teach some really fun classes. But again, I was never the teacher who was seen as the teacher who could whip a group of kids into shape and get them to take a test or be ready for any kind of high-stakes endeavor. And because of that, I often felt like a fraud. Like I wasn't living up to what others thought a teacher should be or look like. Have you ever felt that way? That there's a disconnect between who you see yourself to be and the job that you think is required of you? For a long time, I felt this fraud feeling close to my heart and tried to get better at the things I knew I was supposed to be doing better at. But guess what? It never worked. And it took a toll on my health and well-being. Constantly comparing my classroom progress to other teachers, constantly pushing myself to do more, to get my students to do more. The further I pushed and tried to do what others did, I missed out on who was right in front of me. My students and my classroom. The potential of my gifts and talents merging with their interests and abilities. And when I let go of feeling like a fraud, or at least pushed it to the side a little bit, I realized that when I was a better me, that made me a better teacher. So how can you focus on becoming the better you right now? The end of our school year is rapidly approaching, and what I don't want for any of you to do is to get to the end of the school year simply white-knuckling it to the break. When you focus on what makes you a better you, you will become a better teacher. Close the classroom door. Stop trying to match everyone's outsides with your insides. And just like on social media, we just see the curated side of the story. Sometimes that's all we're seeing when we see the outside version of other people's classrooms. I guarantee that once you realize that you have gifts, strengths, and talents that no one else can bring to the table, you will feel better. And here's one more word of advice for this time of year. Some kids have checked out. Try not to take it personally. Try to teach to the kids who were there, the kids who were smiling, the kids who were looking at you and waiting for you to be fully the teacher they desperately need right now. Sure, we can't let the kids slip through the cracks, but there are kids in your room who want to learn. Find them, connect with them. You aren't a fraud. The world needs you and teachers like you. Remember, the greatest predictor of a school's success is the health and well-being of its teachers. You are not a fraud. And we need you just as you are. If this morning's motivation resonated with you, I'd love to connect more. Schedule a time to connect at teachingwell.life/call and check out the show notes for how we can find time to partner together.
Thanks for listening. And whatever role you have in education, we have a podcast for you at bpodcastnetwork.com. Who among your friends and colleagues needs to hear this message today? Please share it with them right now.